Welcome to Once Upon a Dream. Here, the noise of the day fades into moonlight, and stories whisper softly through the night. Close your eyes, breathe slow, and let each word carry you toward calm and wonder. Tonight's tale is Cinderella, the Glass Wish. In the long, narrow kitchen of an old house, the fire breathed like a cat settling to sleep. At the window, a sickle of new moon drifted like a silver boat across a dark, kindly sea. Cinderella sat by the hearth, flour dust on her hands, a few soft smudges of ash on her cheek. Ash is light. It clings and falls again, like small thoughts that visit and leave. Her name had once been Ella, but houses change their voices, and laughter can turn into the click of cold heels. People began calling her by a name mixed with ash, and Ella did not argue. Ash had done nothing wrong. It was simply what remained after warmth. When the night's work was finished, floor scrubbed, pots hung, bread cooling, Ella stepped into the back garden. The wind touched the leaves. The garden answered with a kind of whisper only night understands. In a corner grew rosemary her mother had planted. Beneath it lay a small wooden box, old as a wrinkled hand. She lifted the lid and took out a clear, tiny bead, a glass wish, no bigger than her thumbnail. Her mother had said, "You do not need many wishes. You need one true one. Keep it the way you keep warmth." Each night, Ella laid the bead in her palm, let moonlight rest upon it, then put it back. Not because she had never wished, but because sometimes keeping a wish is a way of living with it. Inside, her stepmother's shoes beat the floor like hail. Stepsisters argued, strings pulled too tight on a violin that refused to tune. Ella closed the box. She wasn't angry. She was tired. Tiredness, she had learned, is a gentle country, like a leaf after a long day of sun. Back at the hearth, she wrapped herself in an old shawl. The fire lifted, lowered, gold as honey. Ella closed her eyes. Night knows how to fold away the noise of day, the way the sea forgets footprints once waves return. Before sleep, she whispered to the glass wish warming in her pocket, "If it's possible, grant me one night to dance, not to be seen, but so my heart can breathe." The clock gave a tiny tick, as if it agreed. A letter from the far woods. Morning tasted of new bread and sounded like hooves on cobblestone. A post-rider stood at the gate, holding a thick paper edged with the palace seal, an invitation to the autumn ball. One night only, celebrating the prince's return, the harvest, and the turning of the year. Stepmother read it aloud, savoring her favorite words: royal, distinguished, selection. The stepsisters fluttered like sparrows over grain. Silk spilled from trunks. Ribbons fell like moth wings. Ella stood still. One hand still flowered, the other around a wooden ladle. "And me?" she asked softly. Stepmother's smile was thin as thread. You? Where is your silk? Your slippers? Your name? The invitation is for guests. Ella bowed her head, not because she accepted their measure of her, but because she would not drop another sigh into a house already heavy with them. She served the meal and listened to the world discuss perfumes, laces, and how to build a dream out of hairpins. When the work was done, she returned to the garden. Rosemary, mint, damp earth greeted her like old friends. Beyond the fence, the forest stood like a wall, and yet Ella knew it breathed. Woods have their own lungs, wandering up and down the leaves. She set the box upon the rim of the dry well, opened it, and placed the glass wish in the sun. Light played inside it, breaking into tiny rainbows. Eyes closed, she pictured a ballroom floor, stone cool underfoot, music slipping between columns like wind along a mountainside. I want to dance, she murmured, not to be known, but to know myself. A white butterfly landed on the box and unfolded its wings. A small reply, the garden of whispers. That evening, while the household fussed over shoes and coils of hair, Ella finished the kitchen and went out again. The breeze felt like silk. Flowers leaned their heads together to discuss something only patient people can hear. She sat beside the night-blooming jasmine. The glass wish warmed in her pocket like a hand finding hers. "Did you call for your mother?" asked a voice. Old, warm, not exactly a sound, more the feeling of a sentence. Ella opened her eyes. Before her stood a small woman in a smoke-colored shawl, holding an old hearth poker smooth from years. Her hair looked like a curl of smoke. Her eyes held embers that had not gone out. "Who are you?" Ella asked. "I keep the night," the woman smiled, so kindly the leaves paused their whispering to listen. "When someone in this garden calls for something very quiet, I hear." Ella swallowed. "I only want one night to dance, not so anyone remembers me, so my heart remembers it is alive." The woman nodded. "You do not ask for crowns or titles. You ask for a heartbeat. The garden is generous to those who keep silence kindly." She sat, resting the poker across her knees like a modest wand. "Show me what you've kept." Ella placed the glass wish upon the woman's palm. The old eyes brightened. "A glass wish. Not everyone is patient enough to keep a wish rather than hurry to use it." "I fear using it wrong," Ella whispered. "If a wish truly fits your heart, there is no wrong. It simply becomes a path." She returned the bead to Ella's hand and blew on it. The garden's wind turned, carrying the scent of moon and river. In Ella's palm, the bead spooled into a thread, clear as drawn light. "Keep this thread," the night keeper said. "On the night of the ball, it will lead you to a dress that fits your spirit. As for shoes, I will not make them to startle. I will make them to remind." "Remind me of what?" "That what shines too bright is easy to break, and that Returning on time keeps magic from running dry. She tapped the ground with the poker. From deep among the roots rose a rustle like rain on a roof. Ash fell softly from Ella's hair. The woman's eyes shone like winter morning with frost. The ball is tomorrow night. Do your part. Finish your work, sleep enough, light a candle for the one who has gone, and trust that gentle things have feet. Feet? Ella smiled despite herself. They know how to find those who do not step on them. The woman's chuckle drifted away like a faint clove scent. Ella stayed with the moon thread in her hand, warming as if it were a promise that needn't raise its voice. A dress sewn from Sai's ball day. The house buzzed like a hive. Perfume was a velvet invitation. The sisters' laughter was a handful of pins. Ella rose early, stirred the stew, baked the bread, polished brass buttons with lemon peel. When the carriage door finally closed, the house felt politely empty, like a letter not yet sealed. She washed her hands and stepped into the garden. The sun tilted like a heavy coin about to roll into the saucer of dusk. On the old table, she laid the moon thread, then a needle, small scissors, and a box of keepsakes. A strip of voile her mother once pinned to the curtain, a chipped ivory button, a blue ribbon from their last birthday together. I haven't silk, she told the garden, but I have things that have lived. When the needle met the thread, the wind slowed to watch. The moon thread did not break. It curved with each stitch as if weaving a story. With every pass, Ella breathed a memory. Mother taught me to start a fire with little paper. The rest needs patience. Her hair smelled of sun. I wish I could say I'm all right, even when Ash insists on resting on my dreams. The cloth chose its own color, a soft rain sky blue, edged with silver like the lip of a wave. The gown became beautiful enough for a heart to open, never so loud that anyone in shadow would feel lost. At the collar, small clear beads appeared. Not diamond, not crystal. Dew, gathered from the garden's earliest mornings. In the mirror, Ella saw a version of herself standing straight, breathing full, apologizing to no one for being here. She smiled. The shoes, she began. The night keeper was simply there, like warmth after a hug. Shoes, child, she said, placing upon the sill a pair as clear as two careful drops of river. They will fit if you walk with your own step. Ella tried them. Cool, weightless, at the left heel, a tiny engraving, barely visible. She leaned close to read. When the 12th chime touches, return. A reminder, a friendship between magic and ordinary life must be kept well. The woman brushed a last fleck of ash from Ella's hair. Go. Dance for all those whose feet can no longer find the music. The shoes and the hour. The road to the palace glittered with moon on pale gravel. Many carriages had passed, leaving polish in the air and laughter caught in branches. Ella walked and did not tire. The garden seemed to travel with her in a thread of jasmine, promising, "I'm here, just behind you." The palace gates opened like a moment opening. Inside, the hall lifted light high on stone pillars. Guests wore the harvest: amber, claret, deep gold, chestnut. Music began far away like a greeting and came forward until it touched each chest, a friend's hand. Ella paused at the steps and breathed. The glass shoes did not pinch, did not ache. They felt like a transparent heartbeat. She took the stairs slowly. Faces turned, not because the gown shouted, but because there was something in her walk, as if someone had forgiven himself at last. The prince stood at the end of the hall, crownless. He smiled with his eyes, like a traveler who had learned home is not a building, but the feeling of seeing someone who listens. He came forward and bowed. "Lady, the night is very noisy, yet you seem to have brought quiet. Sometimes quiet is the music that starts all dances," Ella said. They waltzed. Shoe against floor was rain, soft, even. Ella did not think what anyone thought. She counted the 4 and 3 of the waltz and felt each turn as a way to leave and return to herself again. The prince spoke little. He told her about harbors where ropes tied ships in clever knots, while people tied fear in even cleverer ones. "Kings," he said, "must learn to untie." "I haven't asked your name," he said at last, his breath folded into the music. "If tonight is only dance and breath, perhaps names may rest," Ella answered. "Not to be mysterious, only to be simple." They stepped out to the roof garden. The city below looked like a fallen map of stars. River scent climbed the stone. They did not hurry to speak. Their silence didn't force words. "Out there," the prince pointed, "I learned this. Freedom is not owning everything. It's knowing the one small thing you can carry all your life." "Like a glass wish," Ella said without meaning to, and startled at herself. "A wish?" he asked gently. "Some things are clearer for being fragile. Because they are fragile, we cherish them." 10 chimes drifted from the city, then 11, circles widening on water. Ella touched her chest. The glass shoes grew cooler, like wind over a stream. "May I ask you to stay until dawn?" the prince asked without pressing. Ella looked up. "When the 12th chime touches, return." Oddly, she felt no sadness. Magic is not a door for running away. It is a bridge between two shores, dream and day. "If I stay too long," she said, "this dance will turn into show. I want it to remain a whisper." The 12th bell touched the air. Ella smiled, bowed, and ran. Not away from anyone, but toward the promise she had made. The shoes were light as 2 breaths. On the stair, one slipped, falling like a well-placed rest in a piece of music. She did not look back. Behind her, the prince stood still, watching a small, unsad glitter. He lifted the shoe like a man picking up a question. "All right," he told the knight. "I will find the answer by listening for the right steps." The waltz stirred the storm. The palace slept late that morning. Dancers dreamt of lights that still shimmered in their eyelids. But the prince did not sleep. He sat in the dawn room, pale and golden, turning the glass shoe in his hands. It was cool, weightless, and yet heavy with a story. When he tilted it, light broke across its surface like quiet laughter. He wondered, what kind of heart leaves behind something so fragile, yet walks away without fear? The courtiers gathered later, bringing scrolls of names, portraits, and noble lineages, but the prince shook his head. "I will not look for a title," he said softly. "I will listen for a footstep that matches the rhythm of last night." Outside, rain began. Gentle, unhurried rain that softened every sound in the city. And perhaps, somewhere under that rain, a girl in a pale blue dress was washing ashes from her hands, smiling because her heart had learned a new shape. Morning in the quiet house. Ella awoke to the kind of silence that follows. Laughter. A silence shaped like memory, not emptiness. She folded her shawl, set aside the dishes, and watched a drop of rain crawl down the window glass. It looked like her glass wish melting back into the world. Her stepmother and stepsisters returned before noon, exhausted from celebration. They spoke in half sentences, full of names and jewels and speculations about the mysterious dancer in blue. No one looked at Ella. They never thought to. But when she passed them tea, one of the sisters frowned. "There's something familiar about that scent," she murmured. "Like the garden last night." Ella smiled. Perhaps the night left a little of itself on everyone. The others laughed it away, but the night keeper's voice fluttered faintly in the air. "Gentle things have feet, and they remember the path home." The search through the city. By afternoon, the story had escaped the palace like a bird slipping through an open window. A prince with a single glass shoe, seeking the one whose foot fit perfectly. He did not send soldiers. He went himself, dressed plainly, carrying the shoe wrapped in a scarf. Some mocked him, some cheered, some watched in wonder. House by house he tried, but the shoe always echoed emptiness. Feet too wide, too narrow, too hurried. He began to realize he wasn't looking for a perfect fit. He was listening for a breath, a pause, the kind of silence that made music possible. At dusk, he reached a lane lined with rosemary and mint. The smell slowed him, as if memory had a fragrance. He knocked. The hearth and the sky. Ella opened the door, wiping her hands on her apron. The room behind her glowed with hearth light. Outside, twilight shivered with the last of the rain. "My apologies," said the prince, not yet knowing who she was. I seek the lady who wore this shoe. He unwrapped the scarf. The shoe caught the firelight and gave it back in quiet ripples. Her stepmother gasped. Her sisters hurried forward, each eager to try. The shoe refused them politely, slipping, sliding, sighing, no. Then the prince looked at Ella. She stood still, calm, as if the moment had already breathed once and exhaled. Would you mind? He asked. She knelt, not out of fear, but because she'd done it 1,000 times to tend a fire. The shoe welcomed her foot like memory returning to its source. No trumpet, no cheer, just the sound of rain beginning again, soft as applause. The prince's eyes filled with that strange mixture of joy and recognition that words rarely hold. "It was you," he whispered, though he had known long before the proof, the truth that bloomed. Later, they sat by the hearth. The stepmother had retreated to the corner, unsure whether to fear or admire. The sisters fidgeted, looking at the ash as if it might rise and speak. "You left without a name," the prince said, "and yet you left me something more honest than any title, a silence I can still hear." Ella looked at the fire. "I only wished to dance once freely. I never meant to take anyone's peace." "You gave it," he replied. He reached into his pocket and drew out the small glass bead she had forgotten, the glass wish itself. He must have found it dropped in the garden stairs, or perhaps it had rolled there on its own. "I believe this belongs to you," Ella smiled. "Perhaps it belongs to whoever still believes in what's small enough to hold." They watched the bead catch the firelight. Inside it, something shimmered, not light, not reflection, but a heartbeat, captured and gentle. The second ball. Weeks passed. The city forgot its fever of rumors and turned back to bread and trade. But one evening, the palace opened its doors again. No announcement, no banners. Inside, candles flickered in smaller numbers. Musicians played softly by the window. It was not a royal ball this time, but a gathering of gardeners, bakers, storytellers, people with quiet hands. Ella and the prince moved among them, not as spectacle, but as hosts of warmth. When music began, they danced, not the grand waltz of before, but a slower one, meant for breathing rather than display. Halfway through, she stepped on his foot by accident and laughed, the kind of laugh that makes everyone nearby feel safer. "See?" he whispered. "Even glass wishes can learn to be ordinary." "Ordinary," she said, "is the only magic that lasts." The glass wish. Years later, in the same garden where it had all begun, a child sat on the grass turning a smooth bead of glass in her fingers. "Is it true," she asked her mother, "that this bead can grant a wish?" Her mother smiled, the same soft, clear smile that once belonged to Ella. It already did, she said. It taught someone that wishing is another word for listening. Night descended. Fireflies stitched small golden commas into the dark. From the kitchen came the hum of bread rising, the sigh of a window closing. The moon leaned low, silvering the rosemary, the mint, the old well. Somewhere, perhaps in another story, the night keeper laughed quietly to herself. Because every wish that is truly loved turns, in the end, not into glass, but into light.